guitar gently weeps. Look at the floor and I see it needs sweeping. Still my guitar gently weeps.
Welcome to the second hour of Authentic News right here on RBN Live, this 27th day of March 2025. I have an announcement before I begin taking your calls. Tom raised a question about Joe from Tennessee and his status. I've discussed the matter with Peter from Los Angeles, who was targeted by Joe and his inappropriate remarks. And as long as Joe does not make personal attacks or on family members, acts appropriately, he is welcome back to call into this program. And I want to thank Tom for raising the issue, because it's been in the back of my mind, but I had yet to resolve it. I needed to have a conversation with Peter about it. And under those conditions, Joe in Tennessee is welcome back. Meanwhile, we have JP from Chicago standing by. JP, go ahead.
Yeah,
Join the
say, Jim.
Yeah.
God bless you, Jim. Don't feel bad about that hit and run. You're not so bad. In Chicago, there's been over 2,000 carjackings, and there's so many illegals there. There's millions of illegals not having insurance. A lot of them don't even have a driver license. So, you know what? They got no crime in Wisconsin, so that's why they go after little stuff. But I'm glad you got out of that hit and run. I mean, you did leave a note, so it was no big deal.
Well, actually, I talked to her. I wasn't even leaving a note. I knocked on the door. I knew it was a visitor, and we had a conversation about it.
Oh, okay.
And it was just, I mean, it hit me, like a silver bullet when we're having lunch, and I realized you're not supposed to leave the scene of an accident. And there are all kinds of reasons for that, including how can you guarantee the damage if you left the scene and now shows up could be the same as the damage originally. Now, of course, I didn't have any improper motive. I simply had thought I was taking my wife to lunch, and when the accident happened, I should have said, hey, honey, let's make it dinner. But, I bobbled it, but I'm very glad that the officer understood and discussed it with his supervisor, and they decided that would be inappropriate. But I appreciate it, JP. Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, good for you. But just to give a perspective, I lived up there, very little crime. I did security up there. It's a government contractor, and I got targeted. You know that. But they don't have any crime up there. Now, you compare to Chicago, there's already 358 shot, 100 homicides this year to date, thousands of carjackings, These are the funny statistics, though. It's not 75% black, 18 Hispanics gone up to almost 20% now. So more Hispanics doing the shootings. But there's a shot in the junk, and the 3 people shot themselves in the junk, junk in the trunk, and then 7 selfie shots. So they're actually filming themselves while they shoot themselves. There have been 7 of them. So that's Chicago. I mean, just where you live, you got to take it for granted. Little things like that. You're lucky to be alive. And other than that, Jim, I would like to bring up Crossfire Hurricane. Now, this is very important to me because I think what's the weaponization of government. Trump made this executive action. I've been liking his destruction of the Department of Education, Common Core commie stuff. That's got to go. Crossfire Hurricane, releasing the JFK files, all that stuff. But the Crossfire Hurricane was the weaponization of the Department of Justice and the FBI. And, man, they went after Trump big time back then. And I was at the tip of the spear back then because, I can't talk too much about this on here, but the thing was everybody was being spied on by Obama and the Obama administration. And they were using the FBI to do it. And they're using the FBI needed to have NSA tools because everything was being recorded by the NSA. We all know this now through Snowden, that's leaked out. But the FBI were using those tools to spy on political opponents to prevent them from getting elected. That's where Crossfire Hurricane comes in, and that's where I got targeted because it wasn't just the case with this Asian whore from Vietnam, probably a CCP agent. But the real problem was the whole government system came in after me. They took everything out of my bank. They hit me with IRS audits. They hit me with civil, criminal charges. So much to where this Asian whore that probably murdered a priest and forged a signature for 20 years, she could skate through the court system because they were focused on me. I was their target because I brought information to the GOP and my own senator that was being spied on by Obama. And he was part of the teachers' union vote. That was so important. But I was actively preventing these spy tools from going into his phone and computer, and he had to leave a statement. That's how bad it was. But when the government gets weaponized against the people, it's like it turns into communism. That's what I witnessed in Germany in the 80s with the Stasi in East Berlin. And I got to say, we got to resist that. We got to resist the people, these Obama judges, these Obama deep state people, because they're the real enemy. I mean, we go all day long about the Jews, but I tell you, these communists are worse. And when they weaponize the government against you, Jim, like what's happening in your court case, I think that was just pure weaponization, and they should be held accountable. That's where I'm coming from. I think these people should be held accountable for what they did to not just Trump, but all the patriots over the last 10 years.
Yeah.
What do you say about that?
Yeah. Well, I think we got to clean house. And I think Trump is the perfect guy to do it. And I only wish he weren't so completely under the thumb of Netanyahu to be performing these atrocities abroad, because he's diminishing the United States in the eyes of the world. We're never going to overcome the stain of having supported genocide. And now we're doing something completely reprehensible in violation of international law by attacking the Houthis, who are acting properly. Even the UN has said the Houthis are acting in accordance with international law, having declared war on Israel, interdicting shipping that was heading for Israel. They weren't messing with anything else. They weren't even messing with American ships. It had nothing to do with only when Israel allowed aid to come to the Palestinians, the Houthis ceased their attacks. It was only when they resumed blocking aid that the Houthis resumed their attacks. In other words, they're acting totally honorably. We, the United States and Israel, however, are not. And JB, it breaks my heart because this nation deserves better. We're being abused. We're being turned into a sadistic instrument of terror by Trump following the orders of the genocidal maniac who happens to be the prime minister of Israel. Awful.
Yeah.
Absolutely awful.
Satan Yahoo is his nickname. I think that fits him. But this is the thing, Jim. There's a lot of stuff we don't know. We're not in those intel briefings, and like when I found out about what was going on in 2012, I got past my NDA now. It's after 5 years, but I found out that the president was in control back then. And Major Dane said, "Hey, yeah, you think the president's in control, Obama?" No. The whole deep state, there's this whole power, deep, high roller deep state that runs everything. I found that out, a long time ago. So, but this is the stuff that the public doesn't know. And what I heard from Stephen Ben-Nun, and this was a while ago, he said this on John Moore's show, is that the Houthis got a nuke. Now, where did they get that nuke? Maybe that's stuff out there that we don't know.
The Houthis.
That maybe
You're
Trump
telling
knows.
You're telling me the Houthis have a nuke?
That's what Stephen Ben-Nun, ex-CIA, said. He said it on John Moore's show about a month ago. I'll never forget that. I listened to a lot of those shows.
What the hell are we doing farting around with the Houthis? This is very bad, JP. This is very bad.
It is, but it's going towards Iran. That Iran is the final list on the 7 nations, and that's the part of the devil's chessboard, and that's why they're attacking the Houthis to send a message to Iran to get them to stop cooking up nukes.
Yeah.
I know they blew off their first nuke in 2008. I read that. I don't know where I got that source from, but I read that it was open source. They blew off a North Korean nuke. Right after they attacked Israel with those hypersonics, there's a 2.5 earthquake around in their underground facilities, okay? So they have them. That's the stuff they're not telling the public. Now, I could be wrong, but I think they have.
Wait a minute. Now, you were talking about the Houthis having a nuke. Are you saying now Iran also has nukes?
Oh, yeah, and Iran's had them from 2008. They've had North Korean nukes. They've exploded on their territory. That's a long time ago. And they've been cooking them up. Now, the information that we're getting from the press is all bullshit in my concern. I think they already have them, and I think they've given them to the Houthis, and that's why Trump's going ballistic. Now, that's a theory I'm throwing out there. I don't know for sure, but I heard it from a CIA spook, Stephen Ben-Nanoon, who was part of Chabad. He's a converted Christian now, but he goes on John Moore's show, and he happens to be a friend of mine. I like to listen to his conversations, and when he said that, it rang a bell. Now, if that explains that, maybe that's why they're attacking the Houthis. Now, but that's stuff we don't know, and that's why I'm throwing this out there, because there's a lot of stuff we don't know, you know?
Yes. It's all good, JP. You got further thoughts, or a final thought?
Other than that, man, I'm fighting for Brad, rolling for the Supreme Court in Wisconsin. Make sure to vote for him, Jim. Come on, it's for all our freedom.
You know, you can count on it. You can count on it.
All right, God bless you, Jim. And stay out of trouble, you bad boy, you.
Thanks, JP. Gabriel in Arkansas. Join the conversation, Gabriel.
Professor Fetzer, thanks for having me back. How are you? Your voice sounded scratchy for a couple of days, and I wanted to ask you how you're doing, how you're feeling.
I'm doing well. Everything's good.
Good, because right now, Professor, this country is on life support, I think, and the ear of the people need to hear your voice. You're the only thing keeping us alive right now.
Wow. That's such a thoughtful thing to say. I hope there are other voices out there. I so admire Colonel McGregor, Scott Ritter, Larry Johnson, Colonel Wilkerson. There are many others speaking out, of whom, in my opinion, Colonel McGregor is the most outstanding. And he, in a piece I'll play parts of tomorrow, was telling Judge Napolitano it appears to him war with Iran is now inevitable. Gabriel, this is just awful. And the way they're stocking up weapons on, Diego Garcia, it's going to be a very tempting target, in my opinion, when they have all those weapons there. Right now, Diego Garcia is supposed to be out of the missile range of the Iranian missiles. But frankly, if they get missiles with larger range, a strike on Diego Garcia would be perfectly consistent with international law. Iran would have the right. Since they're facing an imminent attack, they have the right to launch a preemptory. And I think that would do a lot of good. Your thoughts, Gabriel?
I'm disappointed with Trump. I voted for him twice, but I didn't vote for him this time. This time I voted for Jill Stein. And,
okay.
I'm very disappointed with Trump. I didn't like the unconstitutional lockdowns under his first presidency. He still hasn't done anything about all the lies and stuff surrounding COVID-19. And I know a lot of information about that actually started here in the U.S. They used a horseshoe bat, Chinese horseshoe bat, and they started it here in the U.S., and then they concluded it over there, and they released it over there. What a dirty trick to make it look like it all came from China.
Yes. More. Gabriel, share more.
Just that I think that if Trump were sincere, he would do something about all of that. Not only that, but this Gaza and stuff, and what you're talking about with Iran, that's a proving ground for him, and he's failing. He's failing miserably. I echo the things you're saying.
Yes. It's so disappointing, Gabriel. I believed in the guy. I voted for him 3 times. And I believed him that he was going to settle these wars. I didn't expect him to resolve one while expanding the other. But clearly that's what he's doing. He's all in for Israel. He's all in for genocide. He's all in for stomping out the Houthis. He's all in for attacking Iran. World War III is going to be upon us before we know it.
Well, in the spiritual science teachings and the Rosicrucian teachings, the extreme right, it represents Satan, and the extreme left represents Lucifer, and we're supposed to follow Christ in the middle, and we really need an independent party. We need to get away from this Republican and this Democrat, this seesaw, taking turns, 2 wings of the same bird nonsense. It needs to be done.
Yeah.
I think the people are finished with it.
Yes. When Trump executed a hostile takeover of the GOP and it turned it into something akin to a populist party, I thought we had the right solution to the problem. But now the people are for the country, but Trump, who promised to put America first, is putting Israel first. I am devastated. And I'm sure millions of other Americans, tens of millions, are just as disillusioned as am I with the way he's handling himself in foreign policy. Gabriel, it's a disgrace.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you for having me on, Professor.
Pleased to hear from you, Gabriel. Glad you called. Call again. Meanwhile,
I will.
David, go do that. Thank you. David in Boston, join the conversation. David, we'll be hitting a break. I'll carry you over. David.
Okay, James. Yeah, last time when I was being carried over, James, I was holding, but I was dropped. And Julie said she didn't drop me. She said that it happens sometimes. But so
David,
anyway,
don't waste your time. Don't waste your time talking about what might have been. Just take advantage of this opportunity to say your piece.
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, Tommy, as usual, he's very devious. He misrepresented what I said, James. I've heard Tommy attack. I said attack. I didn't use the word hate at all. I never said Tommy hates white women, but I've heard him attack white people in general up here in New England, Massachusetts, and Vermont, and specifically white women in Vermont, the white woman of Vermont. And he says white woman, and he attacks them. I didn't say he hates them, but listen, Bernie Sanders was elected mayor of Burlington, Vermont. It's these radicalized college student towns, Boston and like Burlington, Vermont, where there's colleges. Now, Vermont, he's attacked the white woman of Vermont, but Bernie Sanders is from Brooklyn, New York. But like a lot of Jews, Vermont is loaded with transplanted Jews from New York City, James. So it's unfair for him to just attack white women in Vermont. Just jumping around. Now, New Hampshire, do you remember Ed and Elaine Brown of Plainfield, New Hampshire, and the months-long standoff with the FBI? And do you remember Ed and Elaine Brown?
Only vaguely. Stand by, David.
Yeah.
We'll be right back.
Hebo Tea Club's original Pure Pau d'Arco Super Tea comes from the only tree in the world that fungus does not grow on. As a result, it naturally has antifungal, anti-infection, antiviral, antibacterial, anti-inflammation, and anti-parasite properties. So the tea is great for healthy people because it helps build the immune system, and it can truly...
Younger than today. I never needed anybody's help in any way. But now these days are gone, I'm not so self-assured. Now I find I've changed my mind and open up the doors. Help me if you can.
All right, David in Boston, and give us further of your thoughts.
Yeah, James. Why I mentioned Ed and Elaine Brown, they were tax protesters up in Plainfield, New Hampshire. And, that's the live free or die state. There's plenty of patriots back here, James. Even John Stadtmiller and Michael Herzog came back here to lend their support to Ed and Elaine Brown because Ed and Elaine Brown were supporters of RBN. John Stadtmiller and Michael Herzog came back. So I mentioned them as an example of patriots. They were tax protesters. They were patriots. But Tom throws some real fastballs too. I think a real fastball he threw past you, James. What was it? Just yesterday, he's referring to Harry's bride there. Yes, I mind my saturation. His bride is Merkel there. What's her first name? Harry's bride there. I just had it on my tip of my... his bride, Merkel?
Angela Merkel.
What's Prince Harry's bride? What's her first name?
Merkel, yeah.
What's her first name?
Right, go ahead. What about her?
No, he's referring to her as Angela Merkel. He's referring to Harry's bride as...
Dave, we don't want to spend time on trivia like that. Just go right ahead and give us any...
The point I'm trying to make, this is important because Republic Broadcasting has perpetually been up a financial double creek without a paddle, and it doesn't help a guy like Tom alienating a whole section of the country. Do you think people up in New England are going to support RBN when you got a guy like Tommy Gun Tommy attacking New Englanders and people up in Boston and up in...
Dave, thanks for the call. Thanks very much. Meanwhile, Bubba Scott Brebb. People like it when you talk slower and they can understand what you're saying, Bubba, so take that to heart. You're on. Join the conversation. Are you there? Oh, great, Dave. All right. I want everyone to know we got open lines. Tom in Florida, excellent. You're showing up just at a very timely time. Tom, join the conversation.
Yeah, Jim, good day to you, everybody. Jim, I just want to say this. Move him. Roll him, down him. Rawhide. Hey, they're getting rid of him, but not fast enough, Jim, but I say roll him out of here. Move him out of here. Move him on, move him out. Trump today, I don't know if you saw the news in Houston, Texas. Have you heard the news?
No, tell us, Tom.
Well, they got rid of 667 illegals in the last week out of Houston, but that's not enough, Jim. I figured it out.
No.
They're going to have to get rid of 6,669 for the next 4 years to get the goal of getting rid of 10 million of them.
A day for the next 4 years. I get it, Tom.
Yeah,
By the way, did you hear my token of appreciation to you about Joe in Tennessee? Because I'm reinstating him. on condition, of course, that no more personal attacks, family included. So I want to thank you for bringing the issue back up. It had been at the back of my mind, and I spoke with Peter from L.A., and we worked it out.
Well, that's great news. I just got joined the show right now, Jim. I've been real busy. I'm getting my pool redone, so I've been with the pool guy, and it's been a lot of, the chlorine man, all this. It's a lot of crazy stuff going on today, but not just joined the show, but I'm great. That's great news to hear that, because I think Joe's one of the best callers. He's in the top 10 in my book as far as calling the show about, acknowledgement and what he knows. So I think that's great news, and I'm glad that Peter joined on and to help the cause to get him back on. So,
yeah.
So my hat's off to Peter. So I appreciate that. Like I said, there's so many great callers that call your show. We all have our quirks, but hey, it is what it is. But Jim, going back to this migration problem, invasion. Kristi Noem went down to El Salvador yesterday. Did you see the footage of that?
No, tell us.
It was amazing. I advised everybody on RBN to look at the footage of Kristi Noem going right in front of those gang members that just got deported out of the United States, and they're taking their butt back to El Salvador in that super, instead of CCOT, it should be called EPCOT. EPCOT for all the criminals that should be in there out of the United States. I mean, this is nuts. But she went down there, and she was really bold, and I appreciate what she did. She looked them straight in the eye saying, you're not staying in our country. You're getting out of here. You're here illegally. I don't care who you are. You don't even have to be a criminal. You're a criminal once
Tom,
you get here.
hang on. We've hit the break. Tom, hang on. We've hit the break. I'm carrying you over. Stand by.
I'm not half the man I used to be. There's a shadow hanging over me. Oh, yesterday came suddenly. Why she had to go, I don't know.
That song yesterday is the most recorded song, I think, in popular music history. Something like 137 different artists have recorded their versions. Tom, go right ahead.
Yeah, that's Stairway to Heaven. Yeah, by the way, Jim, that guy from Massachusetts wants me barred from the show. I got to make this clear to everybody in RBN, especially you, Jim. This guy's a real cretin. This guy here's talking about me, and I'm only talking about liberal white women like he wants Bernie Sanders. If I'm supposed to follow Bernie Sanders, a Marxist communist, Elizabeth Warren, Pocahontas, and all these white liberal women. I know this guy talks crap, Jim. He's talking crap. Those white women in those hold on, Jim. All those white women in those New England states, they all vote Democrat. Have you ever seen those states go red yet? Have they gone red, Jim? Have they gone red?
Tom, got it. Got it, Tom.
No, he's full of himself.
Yeah,
and he's full of crap. He's full of crap with those eyeballs.
Tom, we got more serious issues before us.
Yeah, I know. But I'm getting sick of that character. He was banned from the show already about 5 times already. So he's a character. Whatever. Now, here, going back to what I was talking about, Kristi Noem. Kristi Noem had showed some balls yesterday. She went into that prison in El Salvador, which is the safest country in Latin America right now. And she looked those gang members in the eye and said, you're not going to bring none of that crap in here. You're all getting the hell out of here. And I don't care how many it is. If they didn't commit no crimes, they broke the law by coming here illegally. And she said you're all going back. She wants them all deported. I don't care if they're men, women, or children. And they have clean records. They're out of here. Do you realize what it's going to do for the environment? What about the environment? The toilet paper, the paper towel, the water, sewer, the sewage, the trash, when you all these millions of people committing trash, diapers. It's horrifying. It's an environmental disaster, Jim. And you know it and I know it. So Trump's doing a great thing there. Get them all out, make our country safer, and make our country cleaner, and make our country more independent. We can actually buy a home. These young kids today can't afford $800,000 homes, Jim. There's no way. And, Jim, did you ever look into the tax thing I told you about with the school boards? Jim?
I'm not sure I have, Tom. Go back to it. Go ahead. Remind us.
Well, I'm going to tell you right now, so everybody in RBN hears this, Jim. Each one of those superintendents of those school districts are making $500,000-$600,000 a year. They make more than the President of the United States of America. Does that register in your brains? And that that cluck that's calling me out about, look at those New England states, they're never going to change, Jim. Tell me what state you know in Vermont or Massachusetts they'll ever go red. Look at the mayor they got. Bringing illegal rapists into that city, raping our citizenry, murdering our citizenry. How dare that guy talk like that? Disgusting, Jim, and you know it, I know it. Now, going back to Donald Trump, I already told you how I feel about his foreign policy. I'm not happy with it, but he's the best we got compared to a Democrat. And as far as domestically, he's kicking ass. And we all agree on that.
Yeah.
You know what? Maybe
we
you
do,
feel like, and maybe if all your callers would start calling Washington and tell them about the USS Liberty, we'll get results. Maybe Pam Bondi and Cash Patel will look into it.
Thanks, Tom. Good stuff. Good stuff. Give us a final thought, Tom. A final thought.
Yeah, my final thought is so many great callers. I wish they'd start calling your show like Jim in New York or Miles in Maine or all these Sebastian in Sweden. I want to hear their opinion about what's going on in the world events right now. And Reese, Reese, I like to hear about Reese, from Reese. I want to hear their opinion about Donald Trump. I would like to hear what they have to say about this guy that's bashing me about, I don't hate white. I love white women. I love me some white women, believe that. I've always loved white women.
Yeah.
I adore them. I stoop down to them.
Thanks.
I love my white women.
I'm with you, Tom. Thanks very much. Bubba Scott Reb, people are saying when you talk slower and they can understand what you're saying, you make a lot of sense. So think about it. Just talk a little slower. Go ahead. Give it a shot. Welcome back.
We're not a nickname. It's the real deal at the top of the U.S. Pentagon. I have some, bad things to say about the people who listen to this and don't understand. It's war. They've declared war, particularly on the white race in America. And I'm going to tell you the facts, because we got evidence through the Defense Intelligence Agency, and they don't like anybody. They hate their own service members, people who've been in a war situation. And that's another thing. The people who call them, they've never been on a war fighting assignment. We have. And so we know. That's our MOS, fighting wars. But we're not in the military. Now we're civilians. So the problem is we're doing nothing. You should be ticked. In the 1970s, I'm on welfare, I can't get a job, I just don't want to really work at this garbage they offer me, they'd get mad. That would be, what do you mean? What the hell are you talking about? Get a job. What the hell are you good for? You don't take welfare. But that's what's happening now. The difference is nobody cares. Oh, you mean you can fix America? Well, who asked you in your opinion? Leave us alone. Take your welfare. It's 180 degrees opposite of what it was in the 1970s. You can't take welfare. Now it's shut up and take the welfare. And that's what this situation is. You should be ticked. We're signed to the Secretary of Defense. And those other two, they're not elderly. They're all ladies over 45 now. But they're not doing a damn thing. And Bubba's the god of war. We won't make mistakes at getting rid. It's an act of war. The only foreign policy, and the only one that counts, is to get rid of these invaders on the United States of America. Right here, right now. It's called street etiquette. You think those jerks around the world are gonna? Oh, they'll transmit this everywhere. They'll be dropping dead of heart attacks, because then we can say, you want some of this? You got it. Oh, they'll be dropping it. You won't hear anything problems from them anymore. Because I talked to the office secretary of the Army for me the last 3 days. He went to Palm Beach, West Palm Beach today. I don't know. Is he going to his buddy at Mar-a-Lago? He says it's difficult. We're waiting. It's all in the hands of OSD, the Secretary of Defense. I said, you mean the jerk who you told me is in the Pacific now, who has to alibi? Oh, no, secrets weren't given away. And we'd like to tell him to his face, there is no secret. You're a moron. You shouldn't be there. Go back back to Fox News and die there. He's a sick freak. We know the whole story here. And he was in Panama. He came back this week, Mr. Santiago from Panama, and he told us, it's real tough down there. I said, give it a rest. They turned it over. The Chi-Coms don't turn people away. If you want to have it your way, do what we say. Take the easy way. It's called the law, 109-364, section 1076. We will rip them apart here, and we'll restore order, because we're the real white race. We don't take crap from punks. And these invaders, not all of them are bad people. They're just taking advantage of they're going out of business sale here in America and taking what's not nailed down. They've got visas to come into this country. Forget about the border crossers. They fly in from Africa. They're not evil. They just take what they can get. They get some crummy, like leftovers, and maybe they get some good stuff, and they do some jobs here and leave whenever they're ready, because nobody checks their visa. It's all-out war on Whitey, and nobody does anything. This network is really bad off. So get with the program. We're not a nickname. We're an official call sign at the top of the Pentagon. That's why RSEC phones me, a civilian. That's why we're under military jurisdiction. That's why 911, you can report us till hell freezes over. They can't go near us. We're the official business under law, the law. So if you don't understand that, you're wrong. And we're not doing our obligation. So we call him Mr. Flamboyant Florida. He's flamboyant. And he mentions our name, and he doesn't get it. He's never been in a war action situation. I don't think he's ever been military. He sounds like he's been around a long time, but maybe not. And we don't like the women who call and say they hate men. They're right, but then they revert back to, but we can't fix anything. I want somebody to say,
give me your final thoughts, Bubba. Give me your final thoughts.
You don't shut up about us. You say, hey, they're not doing their job. We're paying them, and they better go with the program, 109-364, section 1076, and they better go get these invaders. We'll do that. We know how to do. We'll sit in the bunker because civilians are prohibited direct participation in armed conflict. But we know how to order parts, and we know where the problems are. And the freaks who sponsored them are leaving. We're not leaving this time.
Thank you, Bubba, very much. Joe in Florida joined the conversation. Joe, welcome back.
Hey, Jim. Thanks for taking my call. Hey, listen, I got a solution here. We get a cage match between Tom from Florida and David from Boston, and the referee is Bubba Scout Reb. I mean, obviously, my money's on Tom.
Why didn't I think of that? Why didn't I think of that, Joe?
Rather than waste all our time. Anyway, but my money's on Tom. So, all seriousness, though, thanks for covering this story. It's still, I think, unfolding about this Walt character and his allegedly mistaken inclusion of this Goldberg. Is that a Swedish name? Goldberg on his highly important national security point. Now, listen, I think the mistake in trying to understand this story is that we're looking at it from the point of view of, there's a reporter that was included on the National Security Advisor's, highly classified texts, whatever. So you cannot become the National Security Advisor of the United States unless you get the okay from the Mossad. That's already proven, okay? Nobody becomes a National Security Advisor of this country, doesn't matter what the party is, without an okay from his Jewish masters in the Mossad. Now, Goldberg, okay, it's interesting that they're both denying that they were aware of the inclusion of this Goldberg character onto the call. Waltz had this preposterous response for Laura Ingraham last night on her show, where he's saying, somehow, magically, this person was included on the text. I'm not a technical expert, but what I know about Signal, about that app is, you cannot get somebody included on texting unless that person and that person's number is already in your phone, okay? And if you look at the text, you'll see the responses when he's added, his initials are there, JG, Goldberg. So I say that the man protests this too much. Now, Walt is a totally Jewish-owned. He's from Florida. He's completely Jewish-owned operative, okay? So here's my theory. You tell me what you think. Forget about the media and the fact that Goldberg's a reporter, yada, yada. Walt was sending the message to his controllers, his Mossad bosses, by including his operative, who he communicates with, obviously, otherwise his number wouldn't be in his phone, Mr. Goldberg, okay, who's notoriously connected to the IDF already, an operative who spread lies for Israel about the Iraq war and the threat to Saddam Hussein. I think this is just the proof of, him reporting in. Waltz is doing his job and showing his bosses, his Israeli bosses, that he's on the job. What do you think?
I think you're right. I also think it was deliberate to distract, create a diversion from the fact that we shouldn't be attacking the Houthis, and the only reason we're attacking the Houthis is because Bibi Netanyahu wants us to attack the Houthis. It's a disgrace. Absolute disgrace, Joe.
Exactly. And that's a really good point about the Houthis. Intriguing. So what do we have in the last 16, 17, 18 months? We have three groups that are fighting against Israel on behalf of the Palestinian victims, right? You have Hamas, you have Hezbollah, and then you have the Houthis. Okay. Now, 2 out of the 3 of them, Hamas and Hezbollah, have gone into some sort of a ceasefire, which these Jews have backtracked on. What a surprise for both of them. Hamas and Hezbollah have actually agreed to ceasefires, right? The one group that they haven't been able to stop their fighting is the Houthis. Because the Houthis are not really directly controlled by Iran, contrary to what the president says. Okay? So it seems logical. The Israeli agenda is to try and get these Houthis to stop doing so. Waltz, again, is doing his work, doing his job, answering to his boss, trying to get the Houthis attacked. I appreciate you said before, I want to hear that clip from Colonel McGregor, a great man, right? Why isn't he in this government, in the Trump administration? Why isn't he holding a high position? Yeah. That's what I'd like to know.
Why isn't he the Secretary of Defense, Joe? He'd be perfect.
Exactly. Or the National Security Advisor. I mean, he's a hero, but he's also an American, a real America firster. But let me make this point. Yeah. I agree. Yeah. I think that what we're watching now is, unfortunately, it pains me to say it, the beginning of a world war, of this war against Iran. And that Waltz is already advancing and showing his bosses, right? Not Donald Trump, his real bosses, that he's fighting to get this war started. What American is served by a war starting an attack against the Houthis and ginning up a war against Iran? Name one American who will benefit from a U.S. war against Iran. There are none.
Joe, it's great. Give me a final thought.
Well, I try to remain positive. We got to pray for peace. But let's, Gabriel, I agree with what he said earlier. Your voice, Jim, is even more critical than ever because there are people like you and me who are definitely Trump supporters. No doubt. There are many things that he's doing that I'm very happy about. But here's the catch-22. They're going to try and trick us into being intimidated to stand against this war. I don't care. I don't care what else he's doing. If he starts a war against Iran, then that's a big problem. So thanks for
thanks, Joe. Excellent. Excellent call, my friend. Jennifer in Minnesota. Jennifer, join the conversation.
Hi, yes. I had just a couple of comments, or maybe 3, if I don't lose my train of thought. So,
sure.
One, there is a natural spring in Eden Prairie where I live in Minnesota, and it's called the Frederick Miller Spring. And I fill up water there on a regular basis, and there are always, I want to say, people here from other places. And just the other day, I asked the lady, I can speak Spanish. I studied Spanish for many years, but I asked her where she was from. She said Ecuador. Asked her when she arrived here, and she said this month. So,
really?
And in my neighborhood, where the homes are around, they're way escalated. Around 600,000 now.
Yeah.
There are many families from Ukraine. And my son attends a public high school in Edina, and there are so many Ukrainian children there. And you go to the grocery store, and that's all you hear. I mean, there are many that I encounter on a regular basis, on a daily basis, but I don't think that there's anything being done at the borders. I really don't. There's a huge group of Hispanics that play volleyball in a park near where I live on a regular basis. They play volleyball and they play soccer. They're there every day. Men,
Jennifer.
Young men. Yes, sir?
Very disturbing. Very disturbing, Jennifer. I want you to call back again and give me further updates, okay? Give me a final thought. I got one more caller. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Yeah, they're littering the sky with a zillion planes today. Oh, my gosh. The streaks are like crazy mad all afternoon. Anyways, probably 20 I can count so far. But it's terrible. So thank you, Jim.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Jennifer. I appreciate it. James in Vancouver. We don't have James, Mike. Did James drop? Okay. Well, I got to say, I think what Jennifer is saying is very, very disturbing. Jennifer's saying it appears that the illegals continue to pour into the country, that there are an awful lot from Ukraine who are in Minnesota now. This is such a threat to our society, to our culture, to the American way of life. I'm just appalled. And I wonder then if Homan, is just a public relations stunt. I mean, he seems so good. He seems so sincere. He seemed so much on top of it. He seemed to be the perfect guy for the job. Now I'm beginning to wonder. This is not good. Not good at all. Meanwhile, this whole missile thing, let's pick up a little bit more since we don't have our last caller with Danny Haipong.
Yemen launch its Palestine 2 ballistic missile. Just a few days ago, the ICC arrested the former president of the Philippines, Duterte, and then Trump's first term. And starting in 2014, going into 2015, they started a war on Yemen. And Saudi Arabia, with U.S. support, spent billions and billions and billions of dollars brutally bombing Yemen, the poorest country in West Asia, destroying civilian areas, devastating the country, killing hundreds of thousands of people, using hunger as a weapon, intentionally targeting food production sites to try to starve the Yemenis into submission. And they failed. And now what we saw is that, so the Ansar Allah has created a revolutionary government in what's referred to as the September 21st revolution, which is going back to 2014 when they had this revolution that overthrew an unelected, a fake elected leader who ran an election overseen by the U.S. in which there was no other candidate in Yemen. So, a U.S.-backed dictator, and the Yemeni people overthrew the illegitimate U.S. Saudi-backed regime. And Saudi Arabia in particular has a lot of influence in Yemen as kind of the proxy acting on behalf of the U.S. to exert control over Yemen. And so the Yemenis rose up and created this revolutionary government, influenced, yes, by the Iranian Revolution, but they're not proxies, they're allies. There's a big difference, right? And so the U.S. and Saudi Arabia and the UAE failed in this war after years of trying to destroy Yemen. And what happened when the Israeli regime started this genocide in Gaza? The Yemenis said, we are going to have humanitarian intervention. This is the responsibility to protect doctrine in order to stop the ongoing genocide because other countries are refusing to act. And the Yemenis said that any ships that are going to Israel, or eventually they also said that any ships from countries that are aiding Israel's genocide, we are going to intercept them and prevent them from materially supporting a genocide. They've allowed ships from other countries that are not participating in this genocide, like China, like Russia. So this idea from the U.S. that they're just attacking countries' ships in the Red Sea without any idea that it's just all just reckless, it's nonsense. It is humanitarian intervention, and this is really funny. It's actually very clever because the U.S. government has used this narrative and NATO has used this narrative for decades, claiming that they have to intervene in foreign countries because it's humanitarian intervention to stop genocide. This was, in the Biden administration, the head of USAID, and then in the Obama administration, a top State Department official was Samantha Power, who was also at the United Nations. Samantha Power, she made her entire career as the intellectual advocate for humanitarian intervention and the responsibility to protect doctrine. And here the Yemenis, for the first time, are actually trying to use a real humanitarian intervention, a real act of responsibility to protect, to stop an ongoing genocide, not this cynical excuse they use to try to overthrow a foreign government like NATO did in Libya in 2011. They said it was responsibility to protect. Based on lies, they overthrew the Libyan government, killed Libya's leader, Muammar Gaddafi. The British Parliament later published a report admitting that it was based on lies. Well, here we are.
That's what U.S. policy is based on lies. Meanwhile, spend as much time with your family, your friends, and people you love and care about, because we do not know how much time we have left. And support RBN. Back tomorrow. Be sure to call in with your thoughts. See you then.